Before I start the show, I just wanted to briefly say that we did have a little bit of a tech issue with Haley's audio, so we're using her backup audio, but don't worry, it will get fixed partway through part 2 next week. And, since I'm talking to you, I just wanted to mention that we do have a semi-serious discussion about mental illness, so I hope that is informative and educational for you. It's, these are important things to talk about. So, on with the show. Hello, everybody. Here we are again with another interview. Today, we have Haley from the podcast called the Horror Comedy Potcast. And yes, podcast is spelled Potcast. That's actually a hashtag that I use sometimes for this podcast. So, Haley, please introduce yourself more officially and tell the people more about your podcast and then anything else that they need to know about you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. I love When I'm High. I love your podcast. It's awesome. My name is Haley. I'm the host of the Horror Comedy Potcast. Sometimes I call myself a scarapist because I do believe that being afraid is really therapeutic sometimes. But I'm really just a stoner. I'm a producer. I do all the research, and I have nights where I scare myself. I can't sleep right. So I love it. I love doing the podcast. I'm also a crazy cat lady, and I draw sometimes.
Nice.
As well as I'm a huge stoner.
All good things. And then your co-host is Jake, and we're going to try and get him on this podcast as well. Podcast, I should start using. So marijuana sounds like it has plays a pretty big role in your life. When was the first time that you tried it?
The first time I ever smoked, I was 17. At the time, I was dating somebody else. Don't tell Jake. And this boy, just a testament to like how good my judgment used to be. He just got off probation, so he bought some weed. He had this like 2-foot tall bong, and we sat in his garage. Well, I stood to like be able to reach the bong, and I hit it. Nothing. Like I hit it again. Nothing. I must have ripped this bong, this like 2-foot bong, probably like 5 times.
Wow.
And I was just sitting in this chair for a second, and they're like, everyone's looking at me and they're like, do you feel it? And I was like, no. And then I just turned and like threw up.
Oh, no.
Oh, it was crazy. It was like I had the vision of like how flies' eyes look in cartoons and stuff. I don't think I'll ever be that high again. And I loved it.
So after the throw up, you loved it?
I loved it. Yeah. For a second, I was like, I'm not dying. Okay. Am I dying? Okay. I'm not dying. All right. We're good. And after that, it was kind of easy to get into also because my mother, she's as open about it as I am. She's a huge pothead too. So it was really easy to get into, honestly. It was kind of everywhere.
Nice. Okay, so I have so many questions. First question is, when you were taking these hits on the bong, did somebody describe to you anything?
They were like, and these were all people that were older than me, so I'm sure they were kind of like, haha, like,
right.
Nobody warned me or was like, hey, this is a 2-foot bong, so there's a lot of smoke, Nobody said anything. They just let it happen.
And did you know the whole inhale thing? Were you aware of what you needed to do?
I had watched them smoke a few times, so I was aware of it. It was almost like a training montage of like in my head of like me watching them smoke and like preparing myself for like the big fight, like me versus the bong. And then it was my turn to get in the ring, and I just didn't get it.
Well, it sounds like you did. So you said probably about 5 massive hits of this thing, and nothing. You throw up, and then what happens after the throw up? Is it I feel like I should put in a trigger warning for all the times I've said throw up. Was it immediate after that you felt high? What was sort of that transition into feeling good?
It was like probably one of the only moments in my life where getting high, it was almost like, it felt like a movie. It was like how it looks in the movies. Like I was sitting there and somebody asked me if I felt anything, and it was like, it sounded different to me. And then after the big vom, I sat back up and I could see like everything looked different. Everything looked different. It was the same, like, but my vision was weird. I felt like I couldn't stop laughing. I was like euphoric almost. And I felt like a freaking Cheech and Chong cartoon.
Oh, that is awesome.
So good.
I feel like, are there any other details? I mean, I know it's just so hard to describe, which is, it is. Yeah. Are there any other details that you can remember from that specific night?
Yeah. So I sit back in this chair after the incident. I'm feeling like really giggly, like sweaty. I'm a really nervous and shy person, so it took a lot to get myself to even smoke in the first place, and especially with other people. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of hard to get myself there, and I was like really nervous, so like pouring sweat. And at one point, the boy's mother came home, the boy's house, like whoever lived there, his mom came home, and she smelled the pot. You know, when you're like 17 and you think that for some reason, like you can will away the pot smoke smell.
Of course.
You just believe that nobody will notice if you put like a towel under the door in a garage, and it's perfect. It's flawless planning, but it wasn't though. So she comes in and she's like all yelling at us, and I'm already nervous. I have fly vision. I don't know how else to explain it. It was like, to me, it looked like I was sitting too close to the TV, like a bunch of tiny screens almost. So she comes in and she's like yelling at us. I'm already nervous. She starts like picking up the bong, taking the weed, like telling us all to get out. And I was sweating so bad. She like stopped yelling in the middle of her sentence and like looked at me, and she was like, "Are you okay?" And I just started crying because I wasn't upset, but I was just like nervous. I was nervous that she was yelling. I've never been that high in my life. So I almost felt like, oh man, it was almost like she was Pac-Man and I was like a little dot. I just felt like she was going to eat me up.
Sure.
So I started crying, and she was a nurse. So she's all like, "Do you need this? Do you need that?" And she starts trying to take care of me. And then I ended up sitting on their couch. She like first aided me and got me like a Pedialyte, and I sat on their couch and watched Tom and Jerry with her and her mother, who was like 80. And it was the first time I smoked. I sat there like just laughing, drinking Pedialyte, eating those like shitty crackers that are like orange on the outside with like this weird like cheese slice of peanut butter.
Oh yeah.
So delicious though.
Right.
Amazing. And I'm really lucky that it ended up that way, because at first when she first came in there, I thought I was going to die.
Well, yeah, I mean, she could have just kicked you out along with everybody else, and you would have had to fend for yourself, and that would have been terrible in that state. And I think consuming all of those things and then watching Tom and Jerry with her and her mother is kind of an amazing situation.
So good. It was so good. Yeah, and that was the first time I ever got high.
That's awesome. That's a great story. The whole fly vision thing is still baffles me, but I'm sure it baffles you as well. It's not really an easy thing to describe.
It's not. And afterwards, after that day, like, I got straight and went home eventually. And after that day, I went to school and stuff. Like, everything was normal, but I was convinced that my eyesight didn't go back to normal. So I was like sitting in the back of math class one day, and I'm like, hey, and I asked this girl who I know smokes, and I'm like, so when you smoke, did you ever get like fly eyes? And then like the day after you have like goldfish vision and you can like see wider than you can before. And she was like, you sound crazy. Like, you need to stop. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it was an anxiety thing, maybe. Like, I was convinced after that for a little bit that my vision was just, like, weird forever because of weed.
Right. But it sounds like it went back.
Yeah.
Shockingly.
Yep.
Okay, so you said that your mom also gets high? She's cool with it or something?
Oh, yeah. My mother is a really interesting woman. Don't be afraid to like put this on the podcast at all. We have an awesome relationship.
Cool.
It took work to get there, but when I was a senior in high school, she was dating someone who was like almost my age.
Mm-hmm.
So she was like just I mean, it sounds bad. It was bad, I guess, but she was the coolest mom. It was so fucking awesome at the time.
Right.
Yeah. So she would like help us get good weed because I'm from Pennsylvania. So the weed that is in Pennsylvania in like 2012, way before most states legalized, is like brown. It comes in a brick and it like doesn't smell and it gives you headaches. They call it Reggie. It's disgusting. So that's what most of the weed looks like out there. And my mother was able to like get a connect and get us like some actually good weed. So it was just like the best, most like silliest senior year of high school being like, come over with my young stepdad and mom and smoke this good Nevada weed.
Oh, man.
It was really popular.
I'll bet. Yeah. Yeah. You jump up in the ranks at school in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so have you, I'm assuming the answer is yes, but have you ever smoked with your mom?
Yeah. I remember the first time that my mom found out I did smoke because, like I said, I'm pretty shy. I don't really, for the podcast, you know, I get high, I drink a little. I'm really goofy and bubbly, and deep down inside, like, that is who I am. But when it comes to, like, just still standing relationships, for the most part, I'm much quieter than that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really share a lot of information. So when she found out that I smoked, I was sitting out on the porch. We lived in the second story of this apartment, and I was sitting down on the ground floor outside, and she came down, and I didn't know she was home. And I was smoking a bowl, and she was like, she just clapped really loud and screamed, and she was like, I knew it. And then we smoked the bowl together.
Oh, that's awesome. So she was waiting. She knew that it was going to happen eventually, probably.
Yeah, she absolutely did. She smokes weed. I mean, I remember smelling it when I was a kid and being like, trying to figure out what it was. Like, is that tea? Like, what am I smelling?
When was it that you, like, did she talk about this with you? Did she come out as doing this before you smoked? How did you actually find out?
Yeah, so kind of unique there. I had like kind of a unique living situation when I was a kid, and I got bounced around a lot. So we didn't spend a lot of time together until I was older, until I was like 16. So when I came back into her life, she was, at the time, we were staying together in her ex-husband's house. And that's when I started to smell this smell. And I remember, like, it was like a light bulb above my head. I was like, I've smelled that before. Like, when I was little and I would be at her house, like, I would smell that. And I was like, what the hell is that? Kind of drove me nuts because I was actually, like, a really innocent, like, I didn't do anything bad.
Yeah.
I worked at Chuck E. Cheese. Like, I was an angel baby. So, I mean, not that weed is bad. I definitely don't mean that. Right. But, yeah. But, like, I smelled this smell, and I was like, what is this? I've smelled this before at her house. I'm, like, thinking it must be tea or something. I don't know. And then eventually she starts dating this other younger guy, and she moves out with him. Obviously, we have to have a lot of, like, weird talks because it's, like, tough when your mom dates, or when any parent starts to date in general, especially when they start to date someone that, like, you know, from your peer group.
Right.
It's like a whole awkward situation. So maybe that was like also what made me want to get high. I was like, this is weird. I gotta do something. But she ended up moving out. We had to have some weird conversations, and that was one of them. She was like, I've been sneaking around my dad, who I call my dad, is her ex-husband. So she was telling me, like, your dad doesn't like that I smoke. I try to keep it outside and stuff, but I know that you guys know that I smoke. And so, like, I just want to get out of here before we have problems. Like, he's been nice letting us stay here. And, so that's kind of when we had that conversation when I was like 16. I was able to move in with her shortly thereafter, and I lived with her until I was 18. So that's kind of when I was like, okay, maybe I'll try it.
Yeah, that's cool. And it sounds like, you've done a lot of work to get to this point. So it sounds well worth it.
Definitely.
I always love hearing stories about when, kids find out that their parents smoke and that they still do, and sometimes they smoke together. And because, I think now as we're getting along in time, and, there's a lot more parents, obviously, who were born during the 50s, 60s, 70s, there's a higher likelihood that they will be smoking than, the generation before that.
Right.
And so, I think we're seeing a lot more multi-generational potheads, I guess, for lack of a better term. Yeah. So that's cool. Maybe I'll have to talk to her someday.
She would love to.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Those are some of my favorite memories, like coming home and she's like high as hell, laying on the couch, eating macaroni and cheese out of the pot. Like,
right.
It's so funny.
A teenager is like, yes, this is my life. Let's do this.
This is the best possible scenario.
Yeah. Well, you're very lucky. Very lucky.
Yeah, she's an awesome mom.
Very cool. So back to you and your enjoyment of this plant. Do you have a preferred method of intake these days? Obviously, that first time sounds a little rare, a 2-foot bong. But what about now?
So I love smoking. I like edibles, but I have what I call like the heathen gene, meaning I can take like 412 edibles and be fine. It takes a lot. So it's just easier for me to smoke. I love glassware. I love cute little silly pipes. I love like beautiful bongs. The only thing is that me and glass are like opposite types of Pokemon, and like we just don't get along. So it's really tough. We had a bong and I broke it. It lasted a week. This last bong, I broke it yesterday, as a matter of fact. And I mean, honestly, I'm like ashamed. I'm ashamed of how many bongs I've broken. It's like a real source of like where I need to develop my character, but I don't know how to like stop being Godzilla, Bongzilla.
So these maybe something else that's maybe not glass, maybe something.
That's what I gotta.
Yeah.
I gotta find it. Yeah, I love pipes. I have a few durable pipes that I have not smashed into 2 million pieces yet. One of them is like this cute little polka dot guy. He's my number one. So I stick to mostly very simple, very durable glassware.
Yes.
Otherwise, I just smash it.
Yeah, and then you got to get a new one, and that's a problem. Do you?
So sad.
Are you amassing a collection of these little pipes or bongs?
I'm not kidding. We can't. Like, I'm that bad. Like, we can't. Jake, when I first met Jake like 2 years ago, had this beautiful bong with like a koi fish down the middle. Oh. I'm not kidding. One time I set it down and just for actually no, this one I tripped over and I broke the down stem.
All right. Well, that it just shouldn't have been on the floor in the first place.
It shouldn't have. It's so sad. There's been one time I set down a beaker bong too hard on the counter and it just like, I watched it just like crack in half. Like, we can't have a collection because I break things. And I actually ask my friends, like when it's my birthday and Christmas and stuff, if they are about to like try to gift me a pipe, I'm literally like, can you take it back? Because I don't want to have to look you in the eyes in like 4 days and tell you that I dropped it and it's dead.
Yeah, I think we need to maybe start up a GoFundMe to get something durable for you.
I know. We're going to move our way to Gorilla Glass. We're working baby steps. We'll get there.
Nice. So smoking is the preferred method. Little pipes,
We
bongs.
love, what is it called? Blunts. I love blunts.
Okay.
I love rolling backwoods. We have, for the podcast, we had like an episode about demonic possession and I rolled a cross joint.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I love to roll. I like to roll, but the thing is that I'm kind of like a douche about it, and I only like to roll if it's either like a huge, ridiculously large joint or if it's like artistic in some way. Like I like to show off with my rolling.
Well, yeah, if you got the skill, might as well.
Exactly, you gotta. I was born for this, baby.
Yeah, you got those genes.
I do.
What was I gonna ask? We didn't really go into too much detail about what your podcast is about. I mean, it's sort of in the name, but can you just give a little bit more information about that?
That's like classic stoner behavior. I forgot all about it. So this is I have the Horror Comedy Potcast. So we get high, me and Jake, who is my partner, my better half. He's so funny, and he's just like an all-around superstar. We get high together, and we sit down. I do full-length episodes every Sunday where I research a scary topic. I do my best to make sure everything's factual. I can't stand like made-up stories on like No Sleep on Reddit and stuff. I'm such a snob about it. So I do my best to do all the research, make sure everything's factual, and then I sit down and I tell Jake about this scary thing, which he has no idea what it is. He does not like scary stuff. So I just try to scare him. At the end, I ask if he's scared, and he tells us a happy story, kind of balance it out. And then on Wednesdays, I just go on the internet. I find all these creepy-ass stories from like 4chan and stuff, and I just have little tiny episodes where I read these scary stories, and I put all these creepy sounds in, and like I have to take a break while I'm making it sometimes. Like it's too much for me sometimes, so it's pretty creepy.
That's very cool. And so they're all your stories are scary related, and then you just happen to be high when you're doing it.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So sometimes we just make jokes. Like we did an episode about anesthesia where we talked about how anesthesia, before the modern medicinal practice, people were just getting, surgery while they were completely awake. And we just started laughing about like Shakespeare words, like it's silly, it's fun, but we're also going to talk about literally getting your left breast chopped off while you're awake. So it's a little bit of everything. It's good.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, I think you definitely got to bring some levity to those really tough topics. So that's good.
Definitely.
So everybody go listen to them.
We just started the podcast in May, and I actually have been saving up and trying to make it happen for a while. I was finally able to. Podcasts are like my main form of entertainment. And I really I love being scared. Like I said, I think it's therapeutic. I think a lot of times if you're anxious and you're stressed and you sit down with a good scary movie and you sweat it out, like you are going to work through some of that shit.
Yeah, for sure. And, for those who are not aware or who forgot, my wife has a podcast called Horrors Talk Horror. And
it's so good.
Yeah, I think so. And Haley will actually be, I think you guys you're going to be talking at some point. And so I don't know if you're aware, but they did a whole episode where they got a non-horror fan to watch some horror movies and interviewed her about that. And that was a lot of fun to do.
Yes, that is so fun. Yeah, that I actually love fucking horse talk horror. It makes my New Jersey accent come out. I want to be like horse talk horror.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. So if any of you are interested in the horror and the paranormal and creepy stuff, go check out Haley's podcast, and then you can also check out Horse Talk Horror. All right, so back to cannabis. How often do you smoke? Do you partake in this?
Yeah, so kind of unique. I am living with a mental illness, so I do have a personality disorder.
Okay.
Like super heavy, not what we came here to talk about, but I do medicate with cannabis. For me, that mental illness looks like a lot of mood swings, a lot of anxiety. I never I try my best to not lash out at other people, but it's a lot of internal stuff, like just a lot of me in my own head. So when I sit down and I rip that bowl, it's like just setting that suitcase down. All this heavy shit I've been carrying around, just setting it down for a minute. So I smoke a fuckload. I do have coping mechanisms. It's important if you do have a mental illness that you're not, like, I guess, putting that cannabis bow on it and calling it fixed.
Right.
I still do the work. I still use my coping mechanisms and try to take care of myself the best I can. But if I'm still struggling, that cannabis, that does it for me. I get to put that weight down. So I do smoke a lot. I do also smoke to relieve arthritis pain from an accident when I was younger. And sometimes I smoke because I'm fucking bored and I can.
Yes.
So, yeah, I smoke a few times a day. I love dabs too. I just started getting into dabs. Well, Jake is a manager at a 719 dispensary in Colorado. So he brings home like all these dope ass like new concentrates for me to try. So I'm slowly getting into the world of dabbing as well.
All right. Yeah, that sounds like that's a whole other level.
It is.
So obviously your mental illness and your arthritis, those are very important, and that is absolutely something that we can and will talk about as much as you feel comfortable, because that's definitely something that comes up with different people that I talk to, and when cannabis is used to medicate that your whatever issue it is in some way, that's really important, and I think absolutely worth talking about and making sure that people are aware that this is a thing that can possibly help you. Like you said, you still got to do all the other work, especially when it's like a mental illness. But yeah, it's medicine. It is medicine.
It is.
Is there more detail that you are willing to talk about with that specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. And like our safe word will be platypus. So if it's like too soap opera for you, lay it on me and I will stop.
Oh no, I'm just give it all.
Awesome. So I do have arthritis. I don't even think I've talked about this on my podcast, so that's kind of funny. But I was hit by a truck actually when I was 14, and I was not able to walk for like a year and a half. Like I was actually really fucked up and like almost died. When I was in the hospital, first of all, this is gross, but I was constipated for like 3 months. So that hurt.
Sure.
I was on all kinds of meds. I couldn't walk. I broke my hip, my femur, my tibial plateau, my wrist, my hand, cracked my skull, my ribs. I was agonizing every day and on a lot of opiates. I do have a family history of addiction. So the whole time I was taking them, I was 14. So it's not like at 14, you're thinking like, what is this going to do for me long term? You're thinking like, make it stop.
Yeah.
So it was tough to be, first of all, a teenager. Anybody who's a teenager, like, I'm sorry, that's tough. But on top of that, to go through that kind of trauma, go through that kind of pain, and then also be given these medicine, like they were giving me Percocets, Oxycontin, like it was candy, and there was nobody watching me. So it was really easy for me to kind of fuck it up a little bit and struggle when it was time for me to go back to the real world. Like when I was able to walk again and I was able to go back to school, it was hard because I was on all these drugs and it was hard to stop doing all these drugs. So after the accident, obviously I had to have a lot of trauma surgeries on my bones, a lot of pins, a lot of screws, stuff like that in my hips and my spine. So it is a lot of pain, chronic pain that honestly I'm so used to now, it's not a big deal. So don't feel bad. But after I kicked the opiates, stopped using the opiates, I had gotten into this mentality of just gritting my teeth. I mean, like literally, like tension in my jaw, just dealing with it all the time. And that became my baseline. So when I had that fateful encounter in that stupid teenager's garage when I was a stupid teenager too, and I did finally like get to I had to keep smoking after that because the first time you smoke, you don't get pain relief because you turn into like a psychedelic sponge baby and you're like, you don't know what's going on. But after that, I continued to smoke, continued to build my tolerance. And once I realized that this gives me the pain relief that I've only been able to get by risking my, what I have left. You know what I mean? Like, that's how it feels. Because when you are a product of two addicts, it becomes very important that you don't be like them. Mm-hmm. So it was amazing for me when I was able to rip this fucking bowl with a cute little glass egg on it or something silly, you know, like this cute, silly little glass object. You rip this weed and you get that relief that you like don't allow yourself to have, which is huge and life changing. And it made it so that I was able to do things that I like to do, like go for hikes. I was able to get a dog because I was able to, like, I have 2 dogs now. I'm able to go outside, take them for walks, do whatever they need. I mean, literally, like, when I tell people I was hit by a car, they're like, when? Like, how? Right. Like, nobody knows that about me because I don't like complaining. And, yeah, because of weed.
Yeah, that's such a crazy story. That first time that you got high, you didn't necessarily notice things, but you said after that, you started to realize, oh, this is helping me with my pain.
Yeah, exactly. And don't get me wrong, there's a difference between getting the, like, New Jersey brick weed. That's not going to fucking relieve your pain. But if you get some good, correct, like, actually properly grown marijuana, what they would call loud back home, what they just call weed out here in Colorado, yeah, that makes all the difference. It can change your life.
And then do you make sure to get stuff that is high in CBD for more of that pain relief? I'm actually really lucky because my partner Jake works in a dispensary, so I'm like spoiled. I'm really spoiled. He knows my problems. Like we have a great relationship and he knows everything about me. So he knows what he's looking for in terms of like what weed does what, and he just brings it home to me and it's amazing. Lower percent THC with some CBD, that's perfect. And then I assume that you do higher THC sometimes as well because you like the head high. Yeah, exactly. Just 'cause. Yeah. And then with the mental illness specifically, did you say was there a specific name for it that or? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have borderline personality disorder, which like when people hear that, it makes them like alarm bells. Like it's not all that though. I think there's a really bad stigma about mental illness, but specifically borderline personality disorder because people like fucking Dahmer have borderline personality disorder, but he's also like a legitimate psychopath. So just the fact that these high profile people happen to have this, it completely skewers the perception of what somebody who lives with borderline personality disorder is like. Right. So I see a lot of stuff, like a lot of, I guess, what's the word? Like just stuff that's not right, you know, about how like people with borderline personality disorder are nasty, like how they use people, stuff like that. Basically, the gist of the disorder is really unstable moods. I can be kind of codependent at times, kind of an unstable sense of self, and a lot of other things that aren't so great. Kind of just basically the way my therapist described it to me is that when something happens to you, when you're developing, something really bad happens to you, your brain gets like caught in a bear trap and it can't really grow the same way past then. So you might still be, if you're somebody with BPD, you might still be dealing or living with the coping skills that you had when you were 14. And it might seem like you're a drama queen or, you know, you're like kind of an asshole sometimes, but that's all it is. It's just basically like your brain developed differently because of stress. So I don't have the same reactions to things as other people do. Right. So it's like stress and trauma related. There was something, was it the accident that brought this on? Do you know? Or was it even before that? I think it was before that for me. I grew up with like an abusive household, getting bounced around a lot without my mom really in my life till I was older. And the person who was raising me was just a fucking asshole. So it's the kind of thing where
I mean, anybody who's been abused as a child knows. Like, if you're under the thumb of a narcissist, every single thing becomes about them. So when somebody, for example, I'm on the couch and Jake maybe like sighs, and, you know, a normal person might think like nothing of it, but I'm thinking like, oh, he secretly hates me. Now is the time he's going to tell me, because that's kind of what my brain was trained to expect when I was growing up. So I think it happened when I was younger. When I got in the accident, I was actually almost grateful, because that sounds fucked, but I actually got a therapist for the first time in my life and felt like there was an adult who, like, I don't want to sound like I'm 14 again, but I'm about to. She took my side. You know, she actually listened to me, advocated for me, like really asked me and actually cared, because it's her job, but also because she actually cared about how I was doing and how I was feeling. Her name was Dr. Kim at the John Hines Institute in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. She's an amazing angel. And I think that that was kind of a huge moment to have a therapist. I got diagnosed when I was 22, I think. So I've been living this way for my whole life, but I've been aware of it for about 3 years.
Okay. And so you had mentioned before that it's sort of like just putting down the heavy suitcases. Can you go into a bit more detail of how cannabis actually helps with this?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really interesting. People with borderline personality disorder, they have a bigger, like the front part of their brain that controls fear is bigger. So that's fucking science. Like, that's real. Marijuana calms that part of the brain. It calms your anxiety. So when I take this rip, I'm not in fight or flight mode for a minute. And I have a second to like evaluate and be like, okay, so what's actually happening? And what am I building up in my head, and what's actually happening? And also it is just a mood lifter. So if I'm having a day where I'm broody and I'm caught up in my own head, that'll take me right out of it. I'll be silly and laughing and trying to eat snacks.
Yeah, that's where we all want to be, right?
Absolutely. That's where I'm at right now.
Nice. So I guess this is not something I usually ask people, but did you actually get high before we got on the call? Yeah,
I sure did. I got home from work about 2 hours ago. I took a dab. Jake was about to take a nap. I laid down next to him and I drifted off. That's why I texted or emailed you all crazy, because I was in like a dab coma for a second.
Yeah, that'll do it.
That'll do it. All it takes.
So because you're in that head state, how are you feeling? How I guess how is this different than just normal?
Okay. That's such a good question. You're so talented. You're great. This is great. So, like I said, I'm really shy. You couldn't tell right now, but I am. I would never in my fucking no, I'm not going to say that, because clearly I would, because I just did. But if I was completely sober, I don't know that I could be as vulnerable. I think when you're high, you feel more, well, I'm going to talk about me. I don't know how other people feel.
Yeah, so, no, that's why this is called When I'm High, because it's talking about
when
you.
I am high.
Yes, exactly.
When I'm high, I feel a little bit more in control. I feel a little bit more in control of myself, I will say, which I don't always have the luxury of feeling. And I feel like I have that extra second to stop and think about what I'm going to say, make sure that what I'm saying is what I'm trying to convey. And I feel that sense of like, oh, I got this. I'm cool. I can say this. You know, I'm comfortable being more vulnerable because I'm high. It's kind of more fun. Like, it's sillier. I have the worst cotton mouth of my life also.
Yeah. What do you do? Do you just wait it out? Do you just drink a ton of water?
We are huge about drinking water in this house. It's a whole thing. You're supposed to drink they say 8 cups a day. It's way the fuck more than that. So yeah, we're a huge water household in this family.
Yeah, so are we. So, okay. water. When you drink water when you're high, what is that like?
It's like being baptized all over again. Sweet baby Jesus is in the water bottle. He's coming into your body. That sounds so fucking weird, and he is blessing your soul. It's so good, so crisp. Like when I'm high, I can drink so much water. Like literally chugging ice cold water is the best thing. And when you're high, you can really taste the difference between cold water and room temperature water.
So we're going to end part 1 there. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy Haley's part 2 next week, where we will keep on going about her journey with cannabis. So yes, as usual, please rate and review and subscribe. You can join the Patreon. whenimhighdoc@gmail.com is my email address. I also have a Google Voice, and the social media should be easy to find. You're smart people. Yes, that's going to end this episode. Thank you very much for listening.